Alrighty, welcome back, everyone. We just broke down those two big games in the Big 12. I do have Arizona State. I do have Colorado winning. Probably the two teams that I expect to see in Arlington. Obviously, some chaos can happen, and it's the Big 12, so we will be watching for it. But at the end of the day, I do have Colorado winning. I do have Arizona State winning, the two favorites this upcoming weekend, and we'll see what happens from there. But let's get to upset alerts. All around the country, we have a number of games, and in the SEC, they're taking up a lot of the wealth. And we'll start with that game that's going on in Norman, Oklahoma. Had to go back to one of their playoff games to get one of these pictures. But at the end of the day, going to be a really, really fun game in Norman, and I think this is one of those games that we're not touching on quite enough, and it feels like the Alabama fan base, at least from what I've seen, I think there are some people trying to bring people back to reality, but it does feel like they're looking a little bit ahead to that Auburn game. It feels like they're really wanting to dominate that Iron Bowl and move forward. Kind of feels like what Ohio State could be dealing with this week, where obviously the big game is Indiana, no doubt about that. They want to beat the crap out of Michigan at the end of the year. Maybe a little bit of attention is going that direction. Obviously, Alabama's got to take care of business here if they want to stay in the fight, so obviously plenty of focus within the team is probably on this game, but I do think the fan base might be getting a little bit ahead of themselves. Oklahoma's coming off a bye. They're at home. They play great defense. And a win, they need one win to get them bowl eligible. It's all of the momentum, all of the energy, all the motivation is still with Oklahoma in a lot of different ways. Now, Alabama's got plenty of motivation as well, but I do think Oklahoma still has plenty to play for this year. And I think with Brent Venables, that's not going to be a team you're going to see quit very often. But the Oklahoma defense is one of the best in the country when it comes to forcing turnovers and stopping the run. If they can do those two things, they have a chance to get a win here. There's no doubt about that. If they can slow down what Jalen Milroe and that rushing attack does, especially the last couple of weeks, what it's done, and if they can stop the deep pass over the middle of the field, maybe get a couple of picks, now that has been an issue for them. Those deep passes over 20 yards has been an issue for this Oklahoma defense. We know Jalen Milroe can make those throws, but at the end of the day, if you stop the run and you live with whatever happens when that ball is going 50 yards downfield, probably the way that you want to go about business if you're Oklahoma. And then you might be able to get a couple of mistakes from Jalen Milroe, a couple of turnovers, and then you might be off running. So Alabama's in a spot to me where they absolutely know what they need to do. They know they have to get in. They know they don't have any wiggle room to get in. So the question is, how focused will they be? I tend to believe very focused. I don't think there's any looking ahead. I don't think there's any, thinking about Auburn or any of that might be going on in the fan base. I don't think that's going on too much in the locker room. I think Kalen DeBoer is very good at getting his guys ready in that respect. And also, the defense travels, and the defense has played really, really well lately. So the way I look at this game is if Bama's going to lose, they got to score under 20 points. And this Bama offense, I don't see scoring under 20 points right about now. So I do think they get this win. I'm going to put it a 1 out of 5 on the upset meter. I don't expect this to happen by any means, but that Oklahoma defense gives them a shot in just about every game they play. Then SMU, they're in a little bit of a fight here, no doubt about that. They're in a little bit of a fight against Virginia, and a Virginia team that is coming off a game where they struggled against Notre Dame, no doubt about that. But right before that, they were able to beat Pitt and kind of ruin their season a little bit more. So it's going to be really interesting to watch this one unfold. SMU has a very interesting dynamic. Really, both these teams have a very interesting dynamic when it comes to the urgency. Technically, SMU can lose this game. If they were to beat Cal next week and lose this game, they would still be going to Charlotte, still have a shot to get into the CFP. For Virginia, they really want to get to that bowl game before they get into that rivalry game against Virginia Tech at Virginia Tech next week. So they have a little bit of motivation. I'm not saying that Virginia has more motivation than SMU. I don't necessarily believe that. But it is interesting that SMU technically can lose this game. Virginia very badly wants to win it, because if they go on the road to Blacksburg needing a win to get to a bowl game, they might just not get to a bowl game, if I'm being totally honest. But the issue for SMU here is, or the issue that SMU is going to pose to Virginia, is the pass game. Virginia has not been one of the best pass defenses in the country, 270 yards given up per game. So it's going to be a battle. If they can't keep this SMU passing attack in front of them, especially guys like Jordan Hudson and Roderick Daniels, it's going to be a lot to deal with. So it's a tougher one for SMU, no doubt about that. You're on the road to a team that is desperate to get that 6th win. The pressure continues to grow. I do think SMU should be okay here. We'll break it down in a little bit more detail tomorrow likely, but I do think they should be okay here. Probably a 2 out of 5 on the upset meter. Definitely one to watch out for, but I wouldn't necessarily be too worried if I was an SMU fan. Penn State, they go on the road to Minnesota this upcoming weekend. They have 2 games from hosting a CFP game. I don't think they should be 2 games from hosting a CFP game, but that's beside the point. This Minnesota team is very tough. They've won 4 out of their last 5. Now, they did lose last week to Rutgers, so that was the 5th. But at the end of the day, they have been playing really good football. Max Brosmer has become a really long way from the beginning of the season where it looked like that offense was a little bit, if you're going to run the ball, that's all you're going to do pretty much. But they've been able to find that pass game throughout the week. And for Penn State, they're an elite defense. There's no doubt about that. They're one of the best in the country against the run and the pass. So can Max Brosmer find the plays through the air that he has found in the past couple of weeks, or will it kind of fall on deaf ears? Will they not be able to find those big plays? And then in the run game, will they be able to find openings for Darius Taylor to get downfield to make those big plays that he absolutely has the ability to make? But definitely is going to be a fight one way or the other. So it's going to be awesome to watch going on the road against a team that is looking for that big time marquee win, especially ruining Penn State season would be a nice feather in the cap of Minnesota, no doubt about that. But I do think this one is going to be really, really tough. I think Minnesota knows that just unload on this one. Just put all the energy, all kind of a Florida LSU type vibe in this one. Put all of the eggs in this basket. Put everything into this game. You get it at 3:30. If they can win it, this entire thing would get a little bit crazy. Some SEC teams would be very happy, but it would be very interesting to watch. Overall, Penn State should be able to run the ball in this game. The Minnesota defense isn't necessarily great at stopping the run, and they should be able to win if they play mistake-free. So if Drew Aller doesn't give the ball away, if they don't have fumbles, penalties, that type of thing drops, they should be okay. So I think they'll get away with the win, but definitely one worth watching. I'll put a 2 out of 5 on it, but definitely some that I'm a little bit more interested in than maybe some others out there. Then we got Texas hosting Kentucky, and they are the only one on this list, actually, that is at home for this game. But Kentucky goes to Austin in the mission just to ruin the Lone Star Showdown next week. And we'll actually talk about the other team in that here in a second. But they proved in Oxford that they absolutely can do that. They can ruin the fun, especially for offenses that are very explosive. They can slow you down. There's no doubt about that. I believe, I can't remember the exact score of that game. I want to say Ole Miss only scored about 10 points, 13 maybe. I can't exactly remember. But at the end of the day, it was an absolutely incredible game from that Kentucky defense. If they can do that on Saturday, then this Texas offense has shown it can get bogged down. It can get a little bit lost. It can get a little bit stagnant. Now, I do think they're good enough to score 20 points or so on this team, but I do think there is a world where they get really bogged down and it looks really ugly. But here's the thing. Texas does know the deal. They understand that if you lose one of the next 2 games, you will not be in. Now, maybe there's a little bit of wiggle room there. That might sound crazy, but I don't think there should be wiggle room, but it sounds like there might be. It's going to be really interesting to watch. I think they do need this win one way or the other if they're going to get into the field, and I think they probably got to look pretty good doing it just to give them maybe a little bit of that wiggle room in the A&M game. But Kentucky is the last is a team that has only won or has lost 4 straight SEC games after that Ole Miss game. So they're in a really tough spot. They're still trying to get back into the bowl eligibility and will need win here. They already got a win last week, so they'll need probably 3 wins to finish this thing off with Texas and Louisville coming up the next couple of weeks. But they gave Tennessee a good scare in that run, so they're still a very capable team, still a very tough offense, but Texas absolutely rolls at home. They've won 5 games there this year. They've scored at least 35 times every time in DKR. I think Tennessee is best equipped to slow them down, no doubt about that. I think it could get really interesting. I'll put a 3 out of 5 on this one. Definitely a little bit nervous for Texas' ability to win this one, but them at home, that offense, I think will get rolling a little bit better than it was last week. I think Texas does win, but I think it's going to be a fun one. Then we got Ole Miss. They make their appearance into the top 10 this week, and they got a big one on the road at Gainesville, and it's going to be a very, very tough game. There is some talk about Ole Miss possibly being that 5th SEC team, but it does seem like it's Tennessee. Given those rankings that came out yesterday, it does seem like it's Tennessee, and I do think it's going to be interesting to watch what Ole Miss does the rest of the way. It looks like they just have to win out, and they're in really good shape. Thing is, Florida is coming off a game that really gave them a lot of confidence. They beat LSU at home, and a lot of the juice in that team is with that guy right there and DJ Lagway, a very important player and one of those guys that can just outright win games. He can do it any which way you want him to. It was not necessarily a perfect game against LSU by any means. He was able to make the big plays down the stretch, and that was a huge part of that game. And also, you're going to the Swamp for this one, which is not ideal by any means. Now, you do get it at noon, which is very, very nice. Not getting it at night like LSU did is a blessing. But at the end of the day, getting it at any time is going to be loud. It's going to be aggressive, and you just got a fan base that got their taste. They got the juice that they needed in they're going to be on fire for this one. So they want to ruin another promising season. They want to knock someone else in the SEC out of the race, and I think they have the ability to. This one's going to be really interesting. I'll do a full breakdown tomorrow, so I won't tip my hand too much in this pick, but I do think this is going to be really, really interesting. Ole Miss, if you win, you only got Mississippi State standing between you and a CFP. You lose, those fans get mad in a hurry, and you miss a huge opportunity in 2024. But going to be really interesting. I'll put a 4 out of 5 on that one, and we'll break it down in more detail tomorrow. Along with this one, we'll actually break this one down tomorrow as well, because you look at that line. Texas A&M's only favored by 2.5 on the road at Auburn. This one's really tough. There's no doubt about that. Texas is in a tough spot against Kentucky. A&M's in a much tougher spot as they get close to that Lone Star Showdown. So it's going to be interesting to watch this one unfold. I think the other part is what Texas is probably dealing with this upcoming week, the look-ahead factor. And if you saw the press conference from Mike Elko, they might be looking ahead just a little bit. But I do think it was just a slip-up. It was a very funny slip-up, no doubt about that. But are they looking ahead just a little bit here? And you're going into Jordan-Hare at night. You do not want to be looking ahead. If you do look ahead, you're going to come away with the loss, and you're going to be out of the CFP before you even go to that game. So it's going to be really interesting to watch this one unfold. The A&M offense, particularly the quarterback, is still a big-time question for me. And it's a big-time question in this game in particular because Auburn is very long. They're very athletic, especially on the front seven. Could they slow down that A&M rushing attack, especially the quarterback rushing attack, and make life a little bit tough for them the same way South Carolina did? And then this is kind of a perfect storm in a lot of different ways. This is a 5 out of 5 to me, first of all, but this is kind of a perfect storm where you don't necessarily have a great matchup for A&M on the field. You're away from home at Jordan-Hare at night, the biggest game before the biggest game in a decade for your program. It's going to be a battle all the way through. I feel very confident in that. I will break down that game tomorrow, but that's definitely one you're going to want to be watching for in the SEC this week. But a ton of big-time games, definitely some more on the slate that I'm sure you can find, no doubt about that. But win with those for that upset alert segment, and we'll take our last break here. And when we come back, we got to get into all the questions we have as we head into this week. Definitely a lot of them, including will the picture get clearer this week with the Big 12 and the Big 10, or will it get a little bit more murky if Colorado were to lose? But we'll break it down right after this, so stick with us.